Back when I was your age, our village paid regular tribute to the Sky Clans. Food mostly, but sometimes our tools or even young villagers were taken, if we didn't have enough crops to please them. We were poor and hungry all the time, but that had been our way for generations, almost as far back as we could remember. All the other villages in walking distance were the same, just struggling to eat as little as possible every day to survive, just so those above didn't take their children for who knows what purpose. We lived, we farmed, we gave, we died. That was life. Despite what little we secretly had much more than any other village we had ever heard of, because we had a Hollow Man. It was a secret, of course, hidden from others on pain of death, our own private shrine to the times before. We knew if the Sky Clans found out, we would all die as punishment for our faith. Our people's stories tell us that we used to worship the Hollow Men, we found, when the Sky Tribes first brought us these lands. Angry-faced statues standing silently over the hills and fields, like ancient guardians of the gods. Some of them had been damaged by the ravages of time, revealing cavities within, hence our name for them. We built temples around where they stood, sometimes in rows, sometimes in outward-facing circles, and piled offerings at their feet in hopes of gaining the gods' attentions. At first, the Sky Clans took no notice, but as they took more and more each passing season, they eventually grew jealous of the attention we gave the Hollow Mans. They tore down the temples and killed the priests. They carved up the Hollow Mans and took them away, telling us that the old gods were dead, and it was them who deserved our tributes. Soon, there were no Hollow Men left. Except, by a quirk of chance, ours. You see, the Hollow Men were always found in the grassy plains, or the tops of the rolling hills that dot our homelands. Yet ours was not. Our village is the closest to the southern forest, and in rare times between farm work, some of the village males would go cut wood for trade, or make frames for homes. It was there we found our lone Hollow Man, hidden in the gloom beneath the canopy. Nobody knows how it had gotten there, so ancient that perhaps it was left there before even the forest, and simply refused to yield to the tree's advance. Our elder at the time was wise, and recalling the fate of the others, ordered the Hollow Man covered with tent cloth, and that none outside our village was to learn of his existence on pain of death. We feared the other villages or clans would trade our secret to the Sky Clans to save their own young, you see. Eventually it became our clan's tradition to risk visiting our Hollow Man to make an offering whenever an important decision was made in the village, never taking the same route twice to avoid our feet wearing a marked path to his location. Life went on for many seasons, more until eventually something unexpected happened. The Sky Tribes came to stay. Not with us, of course. They would never lower themselves to be around us lowly farmers longer than necessary. They landed their boats in the dry lands beyond the mountains where no clans farmed, and loudly built their giant metal and light hive houses. We were terrified, of course. Did this mean they were not satisfied with the tributes we paid them? Were they going to take even more, now that they were here to stay all season round? With too many questions and so few answers, the decision was made for our village to make an offering to the Hollow Man, for guidance and protection. Our elder had grown too frail to make the journey, so it was up to their assistant to place the offering. Me. I was young, but had made the trip once before, so I set off with the finest glazed pottery beads we could make, in the hopes that the Hollow Man would guide our prayers to the gods above. I was nearly there when I came across an unknown animal circling through the forest, weirdly gangly and now wheezing from exertion. It was so inattentive, it could have walked right by me without noticing, and in my fear of the new creature, I almost hid out of reflex. But luck betrayed me. I must have given myself away, somehow, for it snapped its head up to stare right at me. I saw fear and pain on its emaciated face, but more than that, I saw intelligence in its eyes. Whatever it wasn't an animal, but a person. It didn't resemble any of the proud, arrogant sky people who forced tribute from us, and it was most certainly not of the other villagers. In the darkness, beneath the trees, I realized I had mistaken its grimy rags for part of its hide. It barked something unintelligible, clearly fearful of me. After a short exchange between us that only confirmed that none of us understood one another, it cautiously approached and mimed eating. I had nothing with me apart from the offering, of course. The fasting was supposed to be a part of the spirituality of the journey. Not that the village could spare any food anyway. Getting nowhere, I made my polite excuses and left, careful not to turn my back on the strange stranger until I was out of sight. It tugged at my soul to leave such a pitiful being unaided, but I couldn't take it back to the village. We could barely feed ourselves, let alone outsiders. I would have to report his description to the elder on my return, so that the village was alert, that it didn't try and steal any of our crops in the night. Our Hollow Man was right where my memory said it would be, his statuesque form obscured by the now weather-beaten tarp that covered it. Even out of sight, just being in his presence was exhilarating, like the air itself was on fire with energy of 100 lightning storms. I quickly removed the cover and knelt in front of it, praying for guidance and safety for my village. Once done, I wrapped the offering beads around a limb so they would be in contact with the Hollow Man, and by extension our gods. It was time to cover up again when I realized my mistake. I spun around to find the strange stranger had followed me. Oh gods, I'd have to kill them now. We can't afford for word of a Hollow Man to get out. The Sky Clans would carve it up and haul it away, then kill our whole village by hiding the secret from them. I looked at the stranger, hoping they would understand why I had to do this, but they weren't looking at me. They were staring at the Hollow Man, eyes wide. I rushed forwards, hoping to make it quick for the poor stranger, but with unexpected swiftness was thrown to the ground in a heap instead. The stranger approached the Hollow Man and barked to it, and in its deepest of tones the Hollow Man answered. It shook itself free of decades of offerings and stretched out its arms welcomingly to embrace the stranger, and the scrawny being mirrored the gesture in return. Before my very eyes it swallowed the strange stranger, filling its void within with a living sacrifice. Thus empowered, it stepped one pace forwards, the furthest any Hollow Man had ever moved under its own power in recorded memory. It turned its head to focus on me, still sprawled in the dirt, and it took me a moment to realize I should prostrate myself before this emissary of faith, the living Hollow Man. It slowly bent forwards towards me, and in a fit of panic I thought it would consume me too, but instead it picked up my discarded offering from amongst the others, and looped it around one wrist. The Hollow Man then stood tall, and marched away into the forest, towards the distant mountains. That was the last time anyone in the village ever saw it. I don't remember exactly what happened right after. I cried in fear and confusion, and panic, and relief, until I fell asleep right where I sat. When I woke, it was to a villager sent to locate me, for I was overdue to return by almost a full day. I was saving my tail for the elder, but the villager told me of the collapsing of the Sky Tribe's hive houses, and the small but mighty storm that blew them down. He told of the rising skywagons fleeing their destroyed homes, not to cross the lands and bother us, but to ascend forever upwards. When we got back, I told my story, and the elder had me repeat it again in front of the whole village. After much discussion, it was agreed that the Hollow Man had mistaken the strange stranger as part of my offering, and that it had took the pre-offered bees as well was proof that the gods had answered our prayers. No one had known that the Hollow Mans did accept life sacrifice, but equally everyone was at least a little pleased it hadn't taken me, or someone else from our village. The next few seasons were tense. Everyone kept stockpiling food in case the Sky Tribes came to collect, but they never did. Eventually, a brave individual from another village crossed the mountains, only to find metal ruins in the wasted landscape. It was confirmed. The Sky Clans were gone. All the villagers celebrated. Without giving tribute, things quickly bloomed into a time of plenty for our people. Our village celebrated the most of all. Unbeknownst to the other villages, it was our efforts that made us safe from the tyranny of the Sky Clans, our faith in the old gods, our messenger, who delivered us all. Our Hollow Man.